We're good.
Hi, welcome everyone to the External Secrets Operator Community Meeting. This community meeting is under CNCF Code of Conduct, so please be excellent to each other. So to this community meeting, we have a few externals, like from other projects that want to discuss a few topics. The first one is the External Secret Store, the Secret Store CSI driver. And the idea that we came up is like, so in this external secrets operator, we would welcome them and they will present the project, like just a brief introduction to folks that maybe are not familiar with it. And then we discuss like the new discussions around the new changes with regards to the API, the new controller, the idea on that side. So, Manish.
Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Yeah, we have a few other folks from the CSI community as well. There's Mo, Nilek, and Xander.
Okay.
And Tommy couldn't make it. Like, he's also one of the other maintainers from Google.
Welcome.
Yeah, I can give a brief overview of the CSI driver. Like, I didn't want to go too much into detail. Like, I'll share a YouTube video that I had, like a CNCF presentation for later.
Yeah.
But for now, I can actually share the doc and then give a brief overview. Oh, sometimes it says screen sharing failed. Do I need permissions to share screen?
I should just be able to share. Let me see.
Maybe I cannot have the recording because I'm screen sharing.
No. What do you mean?
It's because one of the things in order to do the recording, I need to do the screen share, right? Here on Meet Jitsi. Maybe that's it.
I mean, if you cannot screen share, that's fine. Like, I can just talk through it and then share the docs.
Yeah. Okay. Then you share your screen, Gustavo. Enter the docs that they sent.
Can you
Can you
send it?
send on the chat?
Sure.
Then let's see if that's going to work, right? Not sure. You're not seeing my screen. Screen share, screen share, screen share. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
I think it worked then.
Yeah. So on a very high level, right? Like what we're trying to solve is basically being able to get secrets that's stored in external secret store, making that available to the workload that's running in your cluster. And before Secret Store CSI driver, we had the solution called Kubernetes Keyword FlexVol. So that was based on flex volumes that was available in Kubernetes. That got deprecated in I think 1.12, 1.13, and then container storage interface was introduced in 1.15. So the Secret Store CSI driver is based on the container storage interface spec, and what it essentially does is it gets secrets that's stored in like external stores like Azure Key Vault, Google Secrets Manager, and other external secret stores, and then it mounts that in the pods as a volume. So the uh, uh, when a new pod gets created, as a user, what they would do is they would basically tell that they would need a volume that needs to be mounted by the secret store CSI driver. I think if you scroll down, there's an example YAML for secret provider class. Down, yeah, and then yeah. Uh, Actually, if you scroll a little bit more down, I don't know if we have. Yeah, there. Okay. So basically, in that volume spec there, right? When a user creates a pod, they say like, "Hey, I want a volume which needs to be mounted by Secret Store CSI driver," and they would reference this custom resource called Secret Provider class, And in the secret provider class, they essentially say which provider they want to use for getting the secrets from, and then like in terms of what credentials to use and all of this, right? And the credentials that used to fetch the secret from external secret store is actually the workload credentials. So the driver needs no specific permissions to go and talk to these external secret store. And when they create this pod with this volume, because the driver implements the CSI spec, kubelet on that node is going to call the CSI driver saying, hey, there is a pod which says it needs a volume, and that volume needs to be mounted by this by you, who's the driver. And at that point, when the request comes to the CSI driver inspects the request and then gets all the essential information it needs, like what are the secret provider class information and all of that. And the way we have implemented each of the providers, it's all out of tree, and then the communication is through Unix domain socket. So kubelet to CSI driver is through Unix domain socket, and then the driver will call the provider on another Unix domain socket, based on which provider the secret provider class mentions. And at that point, the provider has all the required information to go talk to the external store, and like it basically uses the identity and all of that that's defined. At least for most of the providers that we support today, all of them use workload identity. So like they are based on the federation model. And at that point, the provider will go talk to your external secret store, fetch all the secrets that you mentioned, like if you want like a secret, a key, or a certificate, and all of those. And once it gets those, it sends it back as part of RPC response to the driver. And then now it's up to the driver to do whatever it wants to. So like, yeah, how to consume it, how to write it, and all of that, right? And then right before the provider is called, what the driver does is it mounts tempfs volume into the pod. And once it gets the secrets back from the provider, it writes those secrets in that tempfs volume. And once the write is successful, it will send a success response back to kubelet saying like, hey, I have successfully mounted this volume that you requested and everything is good. And then the pod starts up and it can consume all the secrets from the volume mount. So like all of those are available as files, right? And that's how we started the project. So like this was the basic functionality. And secret provider class is a user created custom resource, and secret provider class pod status is another custom resource that the driver creates to show the status of a mount or any of the other operations. So basically it provides additional details to the user that, hey, like the mount was successful, and if you have auto rotation feature enabled, it would say like which all versions of the secret are currently being mounted into the pod and all of that. This was the basic functionality, and then once we had it, like we had like quite a few users reach out and say, "Hey, we also want to sync as Kubernetes secret," because they were trying to get certificates from external secret stores, and they wanted to consume that through Kubernetes secret with Ingress controllers. Because of that, in addition to the default mount, we also implemented sync as Kubernetes secret. You can enable that feature, and then in the secret provider class, you can say like, "Hey, also sync some of these secrets as Kubernetes secrets for me." But one of the downside to that is the sync feature is heavily tied to the mount feature. So even if you just want a Kubernetes secret today, you have to go through the process of requesting a mount, even if you're not using those files. And then the way we support environment variables today is you would have to use a Kubernetes secret and then reference that Kubernetes secret as an environment variable, because we don't have any kind of admission webhooks or any of that sort. So this is the current state. And then in terms of what we are looking to get to is we are thinking about two things like that we are focusing on as a community. One is to support disconnected scenarios, which is if your cluster is offline for like 48 hours, 72 hours, or like more than that, how would new pods that get scaled up, start without being able to reach the external secret store? So we are looking at some kind of caching model right now at the driver, so that we can cache some of these secrets. And if a existing deployment just scales up or scales down, like scales up, we would still be able to give access to those secrets to that scaling up pod. Like this still wouldn't work if you come and create like a completely new pod, because you don't know what the identity is and if it has access to secrets. But that is one area that we as a community are focusing. And then the second one is we want to make the sync secret experience a little better. Like we want to decouple it from like the CSI driver aspects, but we also want to make reuse some of the existing driver provider design that we have, like basically the UDS stuff, and also allowing our users to reuse the secret provider class. That like if we do support it, we don't want them to like go through a huge migration story. So for that purpose, we are trying to like get take out the sync controller from the driver, run it as a standalone thing, but also allowing users to reuse the existing providers and with the secret provider class. So that is the second thing that we are working on right now. And then like we're trying to build a POC and then try to get consensus from the community.
I see.
Uh,
Gustavo, you have your hand up.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you. So, Nish, thank you for the explanation. I have one question regarding how do we want to actually have the secret sync controller, and I'm going to do a very direct question here. So, back then when we were at KubeCon, me and Rita, the basic conversation that we want to start is if there is any possibility for us to work together here. And to start that is my heavy question already from beginning, I guess. Would you be comfortable if that secret syncing controller would actually be external secrets? And if
Super.
we somehow find a way to talk to the CSI provider themselves as they are right now?
Yeah. Okay. In my opinion, I think that that would be an option. Like I think as long as we can help the current users reuse some of the custom resources that we provide, or and then I think that experience would be a lot easier for them to just like continue using it, right? Like I think like our end goal is to have as less churn as possible for them, like because a lot of users have already adopted it, and we don't want them to like completely give it up and go to something else. But
Yeah.
yes, like a unified goal is if we can come up with something that would be a lot easier for our users. Yes.
Having said that, then on your community meeting, me and Lucas, we kind of figure out of a proposition to make it work based on some new resource definition that we have on ESO here. It's using the
Yeah.
generator resource. We think this could be the way to go. But I think it's better for us to show to show tomorrow, I guess. Just because
Yeah,
the
yeah. I think it
presentation is
makes
not
sense to
ready.
have this too. Yeah, yeah. No, I think it makes sense to have this too because then tomorrow we will have more attendees that are from Secret Store CSI Driver project, right?
Mhm.
And then we can also have this discussion there. I also wanted to have this brief introduction in the beginning of the discussion on this meeting, so we have like this happening on both communities in a way. So yeah,
And just to
but
mention that
yeah,
from our perspective, we also have the same reverse side. We have users that already have external secrets installed and they
yeah,
want a way to sync secrets without having a Kubernetes secret manifest. So for us, it's been a while, I think since 2021, that we have the issue integrate with CSI Secret Store. So
yes,
for us, it also
yeah,
makes sense somehow.
yeah. I had one question that I think I also asked on Slack, but then I came with this idea of like joining both meetings. Is like how you foresee, like even not thinking about external secrets operator, just thinking about your project, uh, changes to your API, like with the new controller and all that. Like how are this discussion going?
So we're still in a very initial stages, like just building out a POC, right? Like I think we as a community decided we want to do something about this, like we want to decouple it, and then like we've started looking into like how to make enable this, like how to make it possible for users to adopt it with as less effort as possible. So like right now we're still in initial stages, which is why there is room for us to like work with you as and then like come up with something that we can together, or if you have to build this sync controller separately as well. So like I think we're still in the decision making process.
I see. Interesting. Yeah, I just wanted to open to. I think we have a lot of new joiners today interested in specific this discussion. So if anyone has specific question for today as well. just so before we go to the next topic.
Yeah, I talked a lot. So like Mo, Nilek, Xander, if there's anything else that you would like to add, feel free to.
Let's see. Can you guys hear me? Does this work?
Yes.
Yes.
I think maybe the only thing I would add in relation to like API stuff is, so CSI Secret Store is a SIGAUT subproject. So whatever change we decide as like the secret CSI community, we would also take to the larger, broader SIGAUT community for approval there, to make sure that the sort of the project stays coherent and sort of in the spirit of what it was supposed to do, or something like that, you know. But otherwise, yeah, I don't necessarily have too much to say other than what Anish kind of covered already.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah, so with that said, I think I would invite everyone that wants to see the next steps in the discussion to join tomorrow's community meeting, like on Secret Store CSI Driver. And then there we are going to present, like just as we did today, a brief introduction of external secrets operator. And then we are like also bringing some ideas, and then I think we can start a document and like bring things forward. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining, really.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Okay.
Now I think I
Savio,
can
have the
stop
next.
screen sharing. Or maybe I can use this screen
yeah.
sharing for the next topics, right?
Yes. You have the next topic, the service binding support.
Yes, I need to find a way to click the link and share the right screen. So I'll do that right now.
That was an item I added. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, welcome.
So I guess just a quick introduction. So both Andy Sadler and myself are representatives from the service binding for Kubernetes community. And what that effort is, it's a way to make it easier and sort of provide a higher level experience for app developers to be able to consume services within Kubernetes. So basically we have 3 different contracts within the spec. Only one of them is like truly of interest for the external secrets, but sort of at a high level. The first is the ability for a service to be able to sort of expose the binding secret. So that's basically a secret that contains information that can be consumed. Then the second contract is for workloads to be able to read that content off the file system at runtime in a consistent way. And then the third is a service binding resource that actually allows a user to say, I want to take this service and I want to project it into that workload. So when those 3 things combine, the experience that used to require that an app dev know the name of a secret that got provisioned for a service, then be able to define a volume and a volume mount into each container within their deployment, and then also at runtime know how to read from the file system to be able to consume the content of that secret and do something with it. So we're just trying to cut down on that toil and just make it more consistent by sort of raising the level of experience. So from the perspective of external secrets, y'all have a really great way of being able to synthesize Kubernetes secrets from external sources and then make them available to be consumed. So we really felt that this was sort of a natural complement for service binding themselves as a way to consume a service that's been provisioned and then sort of make it available into a workload at runtime.
For sure.
So concretely,
sorry, go on.
Good. So concretely, what that looks like for external secrets is what we look for is on the status of the resource, a binding field that then has a local object reference to the name of the secret. So went ahead and put up a PR a couple weeks ago now to actually do that work. It ended up being only a couple lines in the controller. So it's fairly simplistic.
Yeah.
But then sort of on that PR was suggested that come here to discuss the topic. So here we are.
Thank you for coming here, both you, Scott, and Andy. I was talking to Andy before we starting to record that I think this is going to be a very, very short, I don't know, participation from you. The thing that caught my attention that actually made me wonder and have this conversation here on the link that you sent, the bit that concerned me was when I've seen this example here, because this is essentially creating non-vanilla Kubernetes secrets, right? At least when we have this type service binding IO/MySQL.
Yeah, so that type field on the secret itself, so Kubernetes allows you to define any type. Like obviously the default is opaque, and there's a couple others for service accounts or TLS certs. So we basically also use that field as a way of hinting to users within a cluster what the purpose of that secret is. The spec doesn't require a user to do that. It's entirely optional, just so that when someone is listing all the secrets, they can basically more quickly say, oh yeah, it's that one, or that's what that secret is for.
Yeah. And I also noticed that the PR doesn't really change that. The point that I want to make here is that if eventually Kubernetes would make that field non-configurable and fixed because of the evolution of Kubernetes itself, ESO will follow that and only allow the specific fields on Kubernetes to be configured. That would be the only bit that I wanted to raise here. In terms of integration, we are limited to what vanilla Kubernetes would offer. Go on, Mo.
Yeah.
I'm muted. The UI is a little different. Okay, so I don't think that is a valid concern because that will never happen. That this would be a breaking change to V1 APIs in Kubernetes, and we have explicit guidelines in Kubernetes that disallow such a change. We would have to make a V2 secret to do such a thing.
From Kubernetes documentations on secrets specifically, I've never seen explicit mention that any field is allowed on types. We have like 7 or 8 types that are defined, and on code they are also strongly typed. So I'm not 100% sure this was intentional, and hence maybe one day people would change.
Let me be clear. It is 100% intentional. We use it in other parts of Kubernetes with non-typed strings.
Okay.
So no, this is a feature, not a bug.
That's good to know. Thanks a lot.
Now, to your point, maybe we should update the docs to explicitly define that is exactly what we meant, and not it was an oops on our part 7-8 years ago or something.
That would indeed help. In any case, the whole point that I was trying to bring here is just that we are constrained to Kubernetes, vanilla Kubernetes. If there are any changes, vanilla Kubernetes, like for instance, service account tokens, the way that they behave, we are going to follow vanilla Kubernetes. Just be aware that this might, and if eventually it means breaking the service binding integration, we are eventually going to break service binding integration. Are you fine with that?
Yeah. Yeah, we also
that's entirely acceptable.
We also follow bog standard Kubernetes. Like we test against kind currently from 117 all the way up to 127, and our operator works. But even then, like from the perspective of the service binding controller itself, like we never actually even look at the secret. All we care about is there was a service that told us there's something of this name, and then we can project it into the deployment or any other pod spec of a resource, and then
it's implementation agnostic, right?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any implementation that actually does use that type field for anything besides just a convenience for cluster administrators who are interested in figuring out which secrets are actually being used in this way. It's more of a convenience thing for them than anything else. We don't actually do anything with it.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, I forget the specific details, but there are places in the API where we will compare that type to what we expect as a way of validating that a particular secret was intended for a particular use, and then we would fail if it didn't match the expected. I forget exactly. I don't know if it was something with CSI or some other place where we, like, it's just a string, but if it doesn't match the expected string, the actor won't consume it because it basically thinks that there was a mistake made.
And inside of the service binding spec, like this is a recommendation. If you have a reason for that value to be anything else, like use that other value. So this is just a fallback instead of just having a whole bunch of opaque secrets.
Yeah, and generally speaking, this is a very important project, right? Bringing back some concepts that we had in other platforms, I guess.
Mo, did you raise your hand? Sorry.
No, I'm fighting with the UI. I'm sorry.
No worries. Okay, yeah, I think we can go ahead with that pull request. I'll just see if we can just merge it. Is it? But yeah, I think we can just go ahead.
There's only one issue with the linking, but I can help you out offline, Scott.
Okay.
It's a non-issue when you run on ARM.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess the only other open questions, there was one question about there's a cluster role that we add so that our controller can basically find and read the external secret resource, whether we should create that cluster role by default as part of the Helm chart.
Oh yeah, this one is, I didn't really felt like creating cluster roles in clusters that didn't really need or had service binding. So that's the bit that I wanted to be optional. So if users are on using it, they can just easily configure. If not, we reduce the number of RBAC stuff that we create on the target cluster.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the desire to not create extraneous resources, and especially when they're related to auth and privilege. The only reason why I would suggest to create it by default is just so that when a user of external secrets then wants to add service bindings, they don't have to go and redeploy external secrets. It's already pre-configured. But like that's a call for you to make. Like if that's the path you want to go, I will update.
In any case, we would need the feature because then we need to be sure that users that don't want to have more roles installed can at least set the flag to false, even if it's defaulted to true. So the flag here would be needed. It's just a matter if it's by default true or false. I don't even mind starting by default true. It's not a problem. It's just making sure that if people really, really need to follow some controls on that RBAC, they can easily with the Helm charts.
Yeah, that sounds good. The last item was just a matter of adding unit tests for this. So like didn't break any existing tests, but also didn't see an obvious place to add in sort of a quick assertion for this value. So if you could just like say like, here would be a good place to add a test, I can go ahead and do that as well.
Yeah, our unit tests are not exactly the easiest ones to manage. We can.
And we're bad. It's just
they're
like
confusing.
I didn't see a very clear place. Like, oh, like this is the obvious place to add this one little assertion.
Yeah, we can guide on that as well. Like if we, but we can also look for follow-up PRs. We can see what works. But yeah, thank you for bringing this up. Gustavo, on this invite, since we changed times, did we reduce the time to half an hour? Because then we are very, very close to the end. But
no, we did not. It will continue to go until further on.
So the next topic is, I was hoping Yuri would join because he started this.
Yuri is here.
Yeah, I'm here. Hey guys.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining.
Nice to meet you all. This is my first time here. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, so Yuri wanted to tackle this issue regarding telemetry tracing, and then he's doing like just some initial work trying to do what it's needed before starting the actual SDK stuff. This triggered some other questions, because if we're trying to have out of 3 plugins, and depending on the way that we want to implement that, this would impact like how we want to expose metrics of each plugin. Like one of the proposals for plugins was to like have a separate binary, like something else that you run. And yeah, just wanted to bring this discussion here to see what you think.
Personally,
Gustav?
I think we could start with changing the code for the controllers themselves, right? Because then we're not touching the providers, which are the bits that would necessarily go into that discussion.
But what do you mean?
Yeah, it
Yes.
would be my next question, because what I intended to do doing or defining those constant as providers, it was to avoiding repeat the same code for metrics, logs, and traces. And then if you check, I defined the constants.go with all the providers inside. And then after that, I will implement basically the same logic for metrics, traces, and logs. Using, of course, the OpenTelemetry SDK.
I don't see any big issue to actually follow that direction, Lucas. Even if we decide to split, as long as we keep using the same code base somehow, I don't think there's a problem. It would be a problem if we decided to do plugins with WASM, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but then, yeah. I just wanted to bring this up because I think maybe we need to decide on make a decision on the plugin front first before like changing the whole machinery doing metric stuff. What do you think? Because it impacts the whole code base in a way, or the way that we deal with it.
I think I'm going to go for the async discussion. I still don't think that is a problem, even if we decide to go for a very different plugin system. Eventually, what will happen at that point in time is that we're going to remove the metrics code anyways, right? Because we're removing the providers.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
But anyways,
Cool.
async.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks Yuri for joining as well.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And then the other one, when it started this pull request about security best practices and asked for review, I just wanted to like bring attention to it so we can all review and merge.
I think both me and Sab already did a looks good to me. So I think it's really just a matter of merging. The real bit that we need to do then is actually have that release. So we might look. So the real issue here is look at the long-term support that we want to provide. That issue that is the one that we want to add before releasing 08 show.
Yeah, you mean the other pull request about the long-term support? Can you add it to the agenda just so
I'm adding it.
It's also there, and yeah, I also had a look, and it's good. Looks good to me. For me, we can also merge that one. I like the process, and I like the examples that Moritz gave, and also the whole documentation. So
Sab is on the call, right?
yes, I think he was. Not anymore. Seb? No. Oh, he is.
Yeah.
Seb,
I'm
not sure if you could. No worries, no worries. Not sure if you could take a look on this PR as well. I just want more maintainers to take a look on it because since it's long-term release support, it's good that most of us agree with it because it basically means that we have more work when we release stuff, basically.
Yes.
Where is the one? It's
right.
Here, the security best practices.
Okay, thank you. And the last one, did you add this one, Gustavo?
Yes, I just added this one as a subtopic, actually.
Failing dependency checks.
Oh no, I did not add this one. This one was added by Gaurav, who is also here.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I've been persistent and a bit pushy on that PR. I apologize in advance. I see Moritz did comment on that PR. I'm not sure if he has joined today.
No, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, we would need like to wait for his feedback there. But do you have any comments on his feedback?
No, it's just that the FOSSA scan that we have is failing due to missing API keys somehow, and that's. I think what we can do, Gaurav, since you're not really introducing any new libraries, we can just push it forward and fix the FOSSA scan afterwards. Don't
Okay.
think we really need to depend on it. There is just a check diff that we need to fix, but I can push a PR on your branch to make the changes. There is just a spec that is missing to be updated to reflect on the documentation.
Cool. Okay, this is the last topic on the agenda. Does anybody have any additional things they would like to discuss? No. Going once, going twice. Okay. So yeah, I would like to thank everybody that joined, and I would like to invite everyone that wants to see the continuation of the discussion, the Secret Store CSI driver discussion, to join tomorrow's community meeting. And yeah, thank you all, and see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Let me stop the recording now.
Thank you.